Thank you for joining us. We're still at Let's Talk on Every TV. And joining us today, we have Stomzy Mwendwa. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
He's
How are
going
you
to be
doing?
talking to us about our finances. Yeah, anytime someone talks about finances, I just
Instantly.
glaze over. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. You know, just I think I'm very overwhelmed by the terms that are
Yes,
used, yeah?
yes.
But before we get into that, because obviously there are things I need to know, please introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So of course, first and foremost, y'all look lovely.
Thank
It's
you,
good
you
to be
too.
here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Stomzy, as you mentioned. I have been in a couple of different industries, starting off in tech, and then now started something interesting on the side
Yeah.
with finance and investing. So that's what I do now on the side, and hopefully I'm trying to grow it to something that's spectacular that people can be able to enjoy and see the results that I've been able to have for myself. Yeah, so it's just a replication kind of business.
Okay.
So what exactly is financial investment, or what exactly do you do? And explain it in like layman's terms.
Number two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's pretty basic. Whenever we talk about finances, it's always about money. But now, when you talk about investing, that's now when it becomes a little hazy for most people. So to break it down in lay terms, is investing is basically saying no to your urges right now and putting that money somewhere else so that it can work, so that you can enjoy it later.
Yeah.
So the best way to think about investing is saving up and having that money work for you so that when you retire, you have no issues when it comes to living and your expenses.
Now, we're speaking about retirement. A lot of people think about retirement. They're like, I'm still like 20. I'm still like 30. What do you mean retirement fund? What do you mean I have to start thinking about putting money away for my retirement? Why? Why should I do that? I'm still young. Let me enjoy my money. And of course, there's also that other aspect of a lot of us were growing up, we were taught that the best assets you can actually get for yourself is nunua shamba mahali. Now everyone's gone from nunua shamba because you're like, wait, nikinunua shamba, it's not a liquid asset. I can't just very quickly turn it over and get actual cash. It takes a long time before that actually becomes money, or it takes a long time for it to actually appreciate in value to the point where it either doubles your income or the amount of money that you spent on it. So a lot of us have been running now towards money market funds. Kila mtu ako na money market. Hey, kila mtu ako na money market fund. To the point where now we even have an application where you just put your money in there and then it tells you if you lock it for this amount of money, you'll get 8%. If you lock it for this amount of money, you'll get 10%. And if you lock it for longer, you even get that appreciating to about 12, 13, which is what most banks are offering when it comes to money market funds. So like, how exactly are we supposed to be thinking about it? Because I feel like it's almost like quail eggs, you know? We went through, people are like, wait, how can we make money? Then one guy sold quail eggs, made a ton of money, and then the whole country got into quail. Kila mtu alikuwa anauza quail. Now it's like the same thing is happening with everyone transitioning into money market funds. So how is it exactly that you can guide someone who's starting off, especially if this is your first time ever investing, which is a lot of us starting to figure out, hey, I don't know anything about stocks. What are these money market funds? Why do some banks offer 13 while others are telling us I'll give you 29%? Like, which one is the best? Is 29 better than 13? Kind of guide us through. You're starting off, hey, I have this job which pays me 30,000 Kenya shillings and I really do want to save for my future. Where do I begin to put some of this money away? Even if it's like a 5K, that 2K, where do I start? And which is the best plan?
Wow, I mean, that's a ton to chew on, so I'll try and kind of like dissect everything the way you've just done it. So I think in the beginning, we'll have to start with a story because you brought about the story of the quail eggs and stuff like that. This is not the first time this has happened in history. These massive hype machines, these booms of major, like very interesting markets. So it started, I think, in Amsterdam. There was a tulip boom in, I think, the 16th or the 17th century. And people were planting and selling tulips because they were fetching a really, really nice price. And then the market eventually got oversaturated with tulips. And then that market bust. So that's the first ever recorded kind of like market cycle where we had a boom and a bust. And over the course of history in the US and in other markets, we've had major crashes as well. So COVID is being the most recent. So now coming back to what you just mentioned about, folks who are earning around like $300 a month, which is like 30,000, 40,000. The whole idea is whenever you get your salary or you get your pay stub, first thing is you want to pay yourself. So this is a concept like may not make sense right now, but paying yourself means holding some of that money that you've made and making sure that it's in your possession. So this could be in your bank account, it could be in a money market fund, it could be in any of those instruments that at least fetch you a rental, basically interest, when money is just sitting there. So when banks, companies like Sanlam CIC offer these money market funds, basically they're putting your money to work for you on your behalf. They'll charge a management fee because they are doing work. And now with the way kind of like things are, you have to pay withholding tax on that. So for me and for most of the folks that I work with, money markets are just like a tool, like we use like a bank account whenever you have like emergency savings or you want to have a sinking fund in there for your holiday. It's a great place because you can access that money at any point in time that you feel like. But in terms of like long term, there are other avenues that you can use. There are better options out there. I'll give an example as well. We have these special funds right now in Kenya with Mansa X and I forget, it's Oak Fund?
Oak Fund, yes.
Yes, those are special funds and they have a better return, actually an outsized return compared to what you have in the market. But there are others. There are others better options out there, but these are much deeper, and that's kind of like what we do with our clients over at Basket Capital. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier, what we do is we try and find companies, or rather we do individual companies, and then kind of like put them in their own little basket based on someone's risk profile, and then they can be able to offer outsized returns. So currently I have one client who we started off in April. Her portfolio is up now to 40% in terms of returns. So yeah, she has a really high risk appetite.
Okay.
So yeah, just wanted to give that caveat there.
Okay.
Let me just ask the question with the risk appetite, especially that, because as you said, a lot of people tend to have, you're looking at this money like, if I give it away, then what happens? And as you're saying that you are investing in these different avenues, which if someone has a high risk appetite, you're also putting their money to work in more risky situations. So what happens in the cases where, I know a lot of companies like you have to be regulated by CMA, right? That's the major, what do you call it? The government has to regulate money in one way, and CMA is usually the place where they regulate this money. So how do you convincingly tell CMA, hey, look, huyu ameleta pesa yake hapa, anasema anataka 40%. Sasa tutakata kufanya kazi na pesa yake. Like, how do you find that maneuver? Because I know there has to be a way. With CMA, there's a very specific limitation. How do you then supplement that or find a way around it, considering everything?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic point that you bring up. So, I mean, just for context, what we do at Basket is onshore in the United States. So the company is a Wyoming-based company, but we have operations basically all across the world. However, that being said, because we're not taking people's money, we are actually not required to have the license by CMA or the SEC or any kind of like regulated or rather regulator, because this is like a non-professional advisor kind of contract. So now I'm getting into the depth of the whole system. Yeah, so they're like regulated professional advisors, their funds, and all these have to have regulation. They have to be regulated by whatever jurisdiction that they're in, so they have to have that. But there are all these other small companies, or not even small, like even a hedge fund which will carry high net worth individual clients. They'll bring in tens of millions of dollars. They don't have to get regulated. Yeah, so
that's the loophole.
There's a whole ecosystem of little places where you can find a little bit of gaps.
Interesting. Yeah. You had mentioned that you've worked in different sectors. So what was that pivot for you? How did you end up in financial education and teaching people how to invest their money or showing them how to invest their money?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been interested in high finance from a very, very young age. And regardless of that, my mom, I hope she's watching, she uh, guided me to get into tech. And tech is kind of like where my whole career has been. But, the passion has always been there. I had to self learn. It was basically a self taught journey to get into high finance, taking certifications, doing courses, failing, starting and failing, failing and starting,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So it was like a really long journey. So looking back at it, it's almost like close to a decade now.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So far so good. And that's the reason why I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just start this non-professional advisor kind of like suit, just to go ahead and help folks out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes when you're giving financial advice, for most people, there's that need to just keep what you have. Because, if I'm making money in a certain way and it's working for me,
Why should I tell
then just
anyone?
me and my homeboys are going to profit off of this. So usually there's a lot of skepticism when you see somebody telling you, hey, let me teach you how to make money. Let me teach you how to make better financial decisions. And I'm just like, but why?
To what
Because
end?
human
What are
beings are
you
just inherently
gaining?
selfish.
Yes.
And we want to gatekeep all that information. So why exactly do you do it?
That's a fantastic question, and I think it just boils down to kind of like how we were raised back in my day. It was a sharing kind of community back when where I used to live with my moms. So as neighbors, we'd share stuff because not all of us were like from privilege, so we had to help each other up. However, that's just not the initial kind of like beginning of the story, and that's why I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna do this this entire project and try and give out this information for a cost. So for me, and what we did with our company is we give away information for free. We totally believe, because like I came up with the Kibaki's government, and education was free.
It
Yeah.
So like if education is free, then information should be free as well, so that someone can be able to go ahead and make a decision on their own and have their own judgment. So the information is free. When you need help with execution, that's where we can come in and help. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the use of investor, lifestyle investor, because honestly, a lot of us are kind of just in the same sort of cycle. Some people can call it a rat race, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But everyone's end goal is usually to be the Jeff Bezos. Like, I want to spend 7.1 billion in a weekend and not feel any pinch or pain. Like, that is my throwaway money. So how do you then curate that messaging to someone who's like, okay, it sounds like you guys are speaking a lot of jargon. Sijui, finance, sijui portfolios, sijui nini, all that it sounds very intimidating when you're looking at it and you're getting in it for the first time. MMF, iyo ndio nini, I've never had anything like that. So when it comes to this curation of investment as a lifestyle, as opposed to this intimidating thing where I have to look at it as and if I don't understand, because that's what usually happens. Even if you give someone information, sometimes they don't fully comprehend it to the point where they're like, okay, fine, I'll give you my money. Money is hard to earn, and therefore it's hard for you to give it away to someone else to put it out for you or help you multiply it. So if I am starting off, I'm just a young kid. I remember in high school, we used to talk to a random thought, I don't even know how, but I had friends who would talk about treasury bonds and treasury bills, and this is in high school. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? And oftentimes it's just that the information they have seen or they've spoken about at home, and now they're like, oh yeah, telling their friends, and everyone's coming out of high school like, what is a treasury bill? I also have to invest in it, but you don't know how exactly to start it. So as a lifestyle, how do you make it so easily palatable that, okay, I don't know much, but I'm willing to trust you? How do you make that pitch come through in a way that's very, very easy to understand?
For sure. So I'm not going to take like the credit for coming up with coining the term lifestyle investor. That's a guy called Justin Donald, US guy. However, his principles are what I was able to read about, and I was like, you know what, this is kind of like what I want to do. So I'll break it down for y'all. So basically, what lifestyle investing is I will go ahead and, number one, pay myself first, and then deploy that capital in somewhere where it can be able to generate a return / rental for me, so that it can finance the things that I like.
Okay.
So say, for example, if I want to buy a pair of very nice heels for you, for example, I have capital deployed somewhere that will pay, for example, a dividend at a certain point in time. And that for that, I will be able to use it for specific things, like buying you that pair of shoes, or buying myself a vehicle, or whatever, just all that kind of stuff. So basically, it's a principle in practice where your assets, cash generating assets, are paying for your needs and your life. If you want to live the high life, you don't have to get into your pocket to say, you know what, I'm going to buy this cash with, I'm going to buy this with my own cash. This will be cash from the cash that has been able to generate more cash for you. So that's kind of like how the principle works.
So let's go back to the 30,000. I've come to you with 30,000 and I'm like, dude, I really am thinking about taking a trip. I've always wanted to go to Cape Town. Maybe that's my dream. Cape Town is where I want to go, but I want to go to Cape Town by December. I have 6 months. I need this 30,000 Kenya shillings, not only to feed me, to help me with, like, you know, I need to figure out how this 30K for the next 6 months is going to help me with setting up my food, right? Because it's a lifestyle you're trying to curate. So nataka this 30,000 to give me some money for food. I have a plan to buy a car in the next 3 years. But right now, I'm okay with buying a small motorbike, right? To take me around everywhere. But at the end of the day, my main goal is really that I want to go to Cape Town. But I don't want to go to Cape Town and have no money to come back to. I'm just falling on nothing. How would you guide this person into getting to that dream?
Make more money.
For sure.
Yeah,
You need to
there
earn
is
more.
that.
You need to make more
But
money.
still, there has to be a way that you can make them understand that it's making more money isn't necessarily always the solution, is it? You can make a lot of money, but you don't know how to place it into your life in order for it to be feasible for people to actually, the people who have lots of money, but their lives just don't show simply because of how they're spending their money. So this is the thing of seeding. I'm taking this 30,000. Out of this 30K, I will keep behind 5K. And then I have this other 25K now. I will take 5K and pay for my rent for 5K. Now I'm left with 20K. What can I do? What can I put away for every month for the next, it's 30K every month, right? So what amount of money can I put away to then put into the motorbike at the end of the month and then put away to, that's kind of where I'm looking at it from.
Rather, the question is, can you save your way out of poverty?
You want the straight answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No. Yeah.
Your first point, you literally have to start earning more. And there's even like an entire book on that. And if folks who are watching today, The Richest Man in Babylon, just go ahead and check it out. Really, really, really great book that just helps you get out of that rut where you're like, you know what, the money that I'm making right now, I'm going to be comfortable with because, you know, XYZ. You have your own reasons.
But you're saying money is working for you. What do you mean by money is working for me?
So now to answer your question.
Yes, answer.
For sure. So now to answer your question, now with this individual who's making 30, I'm pretty sure they're not going to just sit back and say, you know what, I'm comfortable with this 30 for the rest of my life. They'll want to, you know, go ahead and get a pay upgrade or something. Just climb up the tax ladder. So that comes with knowing a skill that is highly valuable, that is really sought after. That one is an investment to itself. However, let's just come back to, they want to go to Cape Town, they want to purchase
Motorbike.
this bike, they want to do a couple of things, pay rent and all that.
Yeah.
Cool, no problem. So with that 30, number one is you have to work backwards. How much does it cost to go to Cape Town? How much is a flight? Or if you're going to take a bus, how much is food in Cape Town? We have the internet. You can be able to go ahead and get that information really, really fast. Accommodation. Of course, I'm not going to sleep on the street, so I need to have somewhere to stay. How much is that going to cost? When you tally that up, you'll have a figure. Then you can now work backwards. I make 30K a month. All right, first I have to pay myself. That's the number one principle. I have to make sure I keep what I make. All right, so whatever amount, usually rule of thumb is like 10% is good. So like let's just say 3,000. That's for me. I've paid myself. So you have 27 to play around with. Rent is 5K. You have 22 to play around with. Food is, I don't know.
You know, 5K. Call
5K.
it 5K.
You have 17 now. All right, so with that 17, what are the major priorities that I need to be able to live? Is it like transport? Go ahead and subtract
Logistics, 2K.
Yeah, logistics 2K. You have 15. Okay, so what's the 15 for? Partying?
You
I
partying
don't know.
with 15,000?
know.
Can you afford to party with 15,000?
Can you afford to
You
go to Cape
can't.
Town?
We're
So
going
now
to Cape Town
you
too.
have 15 to play around with. So
Yeah.
you have to look at what you want right now to be able to, what's it called? Kwambia mwili pole type thing. So, okay, so you have that. Then you'll have a figure that you're like, okay, this is the much I'll probably, let's just say it's 10K.
10K.
So 10K, I need it to be X amount by November, for example. So now you know I need to save this, but in order for this to actually be able to be a decent sum, it has to be working. It can't just remain 10 because if it's just that 10, it's going to be eaten by inflation every single month. That's a must. You never know. You might get hit with a bill. I saw folks talking about getting these text messages from
Your uncle has been hit by a tractor.
kind of stuff. Yeah. So, you have to like be privy to those things. These things do happen because this is life. So with that, you're like, okay, cool. So this 10, it has to be put somewhere where it's where it's able to get a rental, which is decent enough to be able to help me get to my goal. And probably that goal to go to Cape Town might not be this year, maybe the next, but at least you have that going. And then one final thing, which is really, really interesting, and I hope you ladies know it, is that money likes to go where it's being taken care of. So you'll just find opportunities to make extra money here and there, because it's just it's like a natural law. If you have good money principles, you have good money behaviors, it just finds you. So that's kind of like how I'll answer that.
Okay. And now, when we're left with,
10,000.
let us not work with Kimani with a 30K salary. I refuse that spirit. In Jesus. But now let's talk about purpose-driven investments, because sometimes when we're putting money away and there's no purpose to it, it's very easy for us to spend it.
Yeah.
We've done it, we'll put aside some money and then, an uncle will swallow a panga, which is, we'll see some nice shoes and we'll buy them. But that's because, there just wasn't a purpose for this money that we're setting aside.
Yeah.
But now, how do you come up with that? Because, for some people, I don't have any pressing matter at the moment. As Kathami had mentioned earlier, I'm in my 20s. I don't need to be thinking about retirement. So there's just not, how do you...
urgency is not there.
When you're working with somebody's come to you and they're talking about how they'd like to start investing, how do you have that conversation of, okay, what are we investing for? Like, where is this money going? Like, what's the end game? How do you have, without giving away too much, how do you have that conversation with your clients?
Yeah, so this one I will kind of like use a school of thought from the Centonomy folks, who are really, really good. Shout out to them for helping folks kind of like get the financial lives in balance, especially couples, because, this is like a bone of contention that really causes a lot of issues. So coming to the whole point of, hey, money, it's like, cool. Yeah. You know what? I actually forgot the question. Do you want to
How do you purposefully
invest instead of just
Investing
setting
with a
aside
purpose.
money for the sake of?
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
It's okay.
My apologies. So purpose is, once again, kind of like comes back to your life philosophy, if I can say that. How do you want to live? Where do you want to live? Because people have these dreams. You're like, what? I want to drive this car. I want to live here. I have these...
manifesting.
Yes.
Coach
Yes,
Makan.
Board.
I'm telling you, it's normal and it's perfectly fine. In fact, there's a quote that says, you've built your castles in the sky. Don't bring them down. Build a foundation so that it can it can support it. So what that basically means is, okay, fine, you have your goals, you know what you want. Now it's now working towards that. So that's the purpose. So if you want to live in, I don't know, Cape Town, for example, you know, you do the math. You look, you actually shop. You know, you actually go and look. How much does it cost to own a house in Cape Town? Let's extrapolate 10 years from now, factoring in inflation. It'll be X amount. Okay, cool. Which car do I want to drive? Okay, this is the car I want to drive. I want to buy it in the next couple of years, etc. So you have goals, and you have these buckets of goals, and then now you can, like I said, just work backwards. This is how much I earn right now. I need to earn X amount to be able to finance these out of pocket. But if I don't want to do it out of pocket, then I can go ahead and earn more, and then from there have that deployed in specific vehicles, land, MMFs, all those kind of things. Diversify, and then it'll help you get to that goal. So it's a long-term vision thing as opposed to a short-term
when you
quick
put
win.
aside money.
Why are you
I'm
telling me
looking-
I can't?
Because
Why are
we
you
hear
telling
that,
me
you know.
I can't
like-
drive my car tomorrow.
Let's
What's
just
wrong?
set aside X amount every month, and then at the end of the year, like, let's spend it all, you know, because
Wow.
there was just no purpose to
Really
it.
poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Oh man, but like the thing I've come to realize as well is like money will never really be enough. Whenever you have money and you look at it, you're just like, wow, I wanted this. How am I going to split this between buying a new house, buying a car, and then still be able to eat well, live well, and all of these things, and still somehow remember that I'm getting old? How am I supposed to split it? Has money ever been enough? That's a question I've always wanted to find out.
I don't think so. Even if you look at like billionaires, they will always start, like look at Elon Musk. He's just always starting a new company.
Warren Buffett, always investing.
Yeah, even in his old age. Yeah.
So money is never going to be enough.
It never is. It's just human nature. That's how we're wired. However, it's just like, what are you comfortable with as a bare minimum? Is it like a yacht with a support yacht? Or is it
you have
like...
a small boat to get to the
Yes,
big boat.
yeah, exactly. Is it that? Or is it something, you know, a little more simpler? You know, so a little something that's, you know, you have a house, you have a Porsche Macan, you have the
levels.
ability
The
to travel,
levels.
all those things.
What's their minimum to you?
Bare minimum.
The minimum is asking the question of, is there a minimum amount of money that someone can come to you with? Because oftentimes, as you said, different management systems they ask you for a certain amount for management fees, like 5K, 1,000, depending on where you go. So is there an amount of money which is standard for me to come to you as here, this is what I need to start now, minimum?
So minimum for them to invest? Well, this one is one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I really don't know your financial situation. However, recommendations from, you know, brokerage firms is you can start with as little as $10. So that's like 1,290, 1,300 shillings. That's where you can start. That's the minimum amount. And for that one, you wouldn't need me because my charges would basically just gobble what it is that you have.
So
to
then
start
let's
off with.
talk about your charges. What's the charge for management of this particular amount of money? For someone's portfolio, what do you charge?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable saying that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, just for full transparency. So, like, when we have basically 3 plans, and the most basic plan, the most simple plan, costs $499.99. So $499.99 US, and that's a 12-month contract. Then the mid-tier plan is $1999.99. So that's the mid-tier. It has better. It has more comprehensive things compared to the basic one. And then there's the highest tier, which is $399.99.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also an AUM fee on top of that. So if you have deep pockets, you know, that's the one you would go for because it's basically hands off. We do the heavy lifting, and then you just get to enjoy. Basically, the results will speak for themselves. Yeah.
Okay. And as we're being kicked out, we did talk about high-risk clients, but what about the risk-averse clients? As those, because sometimes you're very overwhelmed by all the jargon, you're very overwhelmed
500.
by everything going on. You're like, hey, what is that? Or like me, when it gets to really just glaze over, you're just like, cool.
Cold
You
in
know,
your stomach. Butterflies in your stomach, just a cold
I
wave.
I have food. You know, I'm good. I don't
I'm
need
not
all
dead.
of this. So, as a client or prospective client who comes to you and is a bit averse to risk, how do you just, take them through the motions?
Yeah, so for folks who are like risk averse, I usually tell them that we're not a great fit for them. Just being straight up honest,
Okay.
we're not going to be able to help you there. However, there are solutions that are better than your money market fund today, than your bank account today, etc., etc. And these are in the form of what are known as exchange traded funds. So an exchange traded fund is a basket of companies that probably are grouped by sector, by industry, or the entire market. So S&P 500, which is basically the 500 most valuable companies in the United States. And I think they're around 504 on that list, but it's just 500 just to make it super easy. So from there, you can buy all that. You can buy just one share of one ETF and get exposure into those companies that are listed in those holdings. So for like an S&P 500 ETF, you'll have ownership in all 500. So you have NVIDIA, you have Apple, you have Microsoft, you have JP Morgan, pharmaceutical. You just have a ton of companies, and then you just let it sit.
Yeah.
And historically, like if you look at it, it's been able to return 10-11%.
Yeah, it's historically.
Historically. And the expense ratio. So one thing I really like have an issue with folks whenever they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm getting extra a percent in terms of returns. I always ask them, how much does it cost? Because you're getting charged. How much? What's the expense ratio? What's the asset under AUM fee, asset under management fee? Is there a performance fee attached to that as well? So those questions, when you ask those, people don't really look at the fine print and they won't know. So with an ETF, you can get an expense ratio of up to 0.03%, which is very, very cheap.
Cheap?
Yeah, very cheap.
Out of your 10%?
No, okay, I don't charge 10%.
Okay.
But there are companies out there that do. And your MMFs in Kenya will charge 2% AUM fees.
I know the special fund charges, I think, about 5%.
5 and 6, yeah, the ones that are there. So as for someone who has like a little bit of savvy in terms of like costs, that's freaking expensive. That's a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in the long term. When you do the math, yeah, I'd shock you. It's shocking. Yeah.
Okay, we're being kicked out. So, final word, if you had a time machine, what would you tell younger Stomzy?
I'd tell him to start this sooner. Just trying to spread the message and let people know that, hey, you don't need to be a consumer. Like, even if you look at our continent, we're just consumers. Very few countries actually produce things and sell them to other countries, developing countries, and fetch top dollar. And especially in our case here in Kenya, we're a net importer, so we bring in pretty much everything, even eggs. I mean, that's a little bit of a shame.
Sugar. You shut down Mumias. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so it's a really painful thing. So now helping just change the mindset from, hey, just let's stop being consumers and let's be owners. Even if you don't need to own big names like Amazon or Microsoft and all that kind of stuff. You can start here locally. You can own ABSA, for example, or this is not financial advice, by the way. Don't go and buy that stock without doing your own research. But you can own Standard Chartered. The companies that you use, if you are able to do your own research, do your analysis, and see that it's a good place to park your money up so that it works for you, then by all means. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I keep saying, there are better opportunities out there. And that's kind of like my job.
Okay, thank you.
Well, where can people find you so that they can help their money grow?
So I am Life of Stomzy, so LIFEOFSTOMZY, Life of Stomzy on TikTok, The Life of Stomzy on Instagram, and The Life of Stomzy Show on YouTube. So that's kind of like where we push our content, and the name of the company is Basket Capital. So you can check it out on basketcapital.com and get a quick overview of what we do.
I feel like basket needs to be spelled because it's not it's not basket like BASK.
There's a Q there.
Kuna manini maretas. So how do you spell that?
Pronounce. Okay, yeah. So I spell it BASQUIAT. BASQUIAT. Capital.
Basket capital.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so much,
joining us.
ladies. I
Thank you so much
appreciate
for
you.
enlightening us. You
It
know,
was my pleasure.
I feel less
Intimidating
scared.
us. I'm still very much scared, but okay. I can't go
Yeah.
to Cape
It
Town.
wasn't the intention.
Kidding.
With that salary? No, you cannot. No. You have bigger issues. But thank you so much for joining
so
us.
much for having me.
And thank you at home for tuning in. My name is Turife. See you tomorrow.
My name is Kathomi, and as always, we had
Stomzy.
yes, sir.